everybody. Welcome back to the Branding for Abundance podcast. I am super excited for this episode and this video because we have another special guest. As you heard, hopefully in the snippet of this podcast and video episode, we have one of our epic Dope Therapist Academy alumni and Elite Coaching Mastermind students. And so I am going to allow her to introduce herself, but make sure, as usual, that you have your pen and paper. You never know what nuggets and gems will be shared. And as a result of these collaboration podcast episodes, we're also going to share with you behind the scenes of how this awesome therapist built her private practice and what she is doing right now in the field. And so I want to welcome everyone, Shaniqua, to the podcast. And so can you give them a brief intro into who you are and where you're located?
All right. Hey, family. My name is Shaniqua Ford. I am a licensed clinical social worker, and I am in Illinois. I am the owner and CEO of Soul Work Cafe. And we like to call ourselves decolonized and holistic therapeutic services. So we help folks really evolve and harness their power.
That is awesome. Come through that mission statement. Oh, man. All right. So nice. And so let's jump into it, because one of the things that we've been doing on our podcast is that I want therapists to see what it was like for different therapists to brand themselves, to build their own business. And then also we have another group of people that sometimes watch the videos or tune into the podcast, which are non-therapists. And I believe that even for non-therapists listening to this, there are still some nuggets and gems that can be shared, because at the end, what we're talking about is either resilience, ambition, not giving up, and then like time management, skills and things like that. And so let me ask you, this is always a fun question. How did you get into the mental health field? Like, how did you choose mental health?
Lord, it was a long journey, right? So I was a non-traditional student. Right after high school, I tried psychology and English and African American studies, and then lived life, right? Yes. And then returned to school after a lot of transitions for myself. Another branch in was through ministry. Wow. I was a teacher and a women's ministry lead, and found my comfort holding space for folks. Mm-hmm. So it was something that was always there. It got cultivated a little bit more in ministry. And then I found myself in social work school, because I've always been passionate about social justice and equality. Mm-hmm. But just folks having access and having support. Mm-hmm. So from there, we came in and I went hard into mental health because of my journey in witnessing, right? Specifically, Black, Indigenous, and folks of color not having that emotional and mental health supports available within the community, right?
Right.
So I got real passionate and thought I was going into policy work. And then again, came back to the place of I love holding space for folks. Mm-hmm. And I was told in grad school, like, you need to pick one. You need to pick macro or you need to pick micro. And that didn't sit well with me. I knew better, right? Mm-hmm. And that's that strong intuitive knowing.
Wow.
And so I created Soul Work Cafe from that space of wanting to honor and hold space with folks in community, mm-hmm. like a village, like breaking bread, which is culturally very dominant, right? Yeah. But also thinking about soul work is we work on ourselves individually. We heal everything we touch. Mm-hmm. And that's where our macro practice comes in. So I find myself also working with a lot of folks who are in that space of transition, and are creatives and leadership roles and things of that nature.
Right. Spell for the audience the name of your company so that they can feel it. Okay.
So we are Soul Work Cafe, and that is work, W-E-R-K.
All right. Y'all got that? We're going to make sure to put everything in the show notes. And so I'm glad that you actually explained it, because I know that when you and I originally started talking about the name of your company, I said, okay, let's look at it. Of course, I'm looking from the marketing perspective. And I said, how will people know, what it is? And so we'll dive deeper. But I'm glad that you explained the overarching vision that you have in terms of what space you wanted to hold for people in your community and customers now and clients that you've served. And so let's niche the conversation down some more. Who is your ideal clientele right now?
So our ideal clientele are folks who are in the age range about 24 to about 55, right? Mm-hmm. Folks who are experiencing transition. And so I love to say it this way. It's folks who are meeting themselves for the first time.
That's good.
As they're coming out, oftentimes we serve a lot of graduate students who, now again, Black, Indigenous, people of color, a lot of first gen. So they are really trailblazing. And like, what do I do now? I'm going back home where folks think I got a degree. And if I get a job right out, I got money. How do I transition back into my communities? The other piece is folks who are experiencing grief and loss, and that can be ambiguous. So divorce or empty nesters. So
what I'm hearing you say is like life transitions.
Life transitions all day long, right? And that's what we know about because we've been there. Again, I shared my experiences being a non-traditional student. Like, I'm a single mother, divorced. Like, so we understand the transitions and evolution. So this embracing these new parts of yourself and coming face to face with self and saying, what I used to survive may no longer be serving me. So how do I move forward and cultivate in a space to thrive?
That's good. Like, as you're talking, I'm literally visualizing if one day we can go back and drink tea at a space. I was literally visualizing, actually looking at your background too, like me as a client, like, whoa, I feel like I would be so cool just sitting in front of you and having a comfortable conversation in public to make mental health okay. And I just wanted to say that out loud because sometimes when we think about the marginalized population, the population that you serve as well, so as I, there's still a stigma around mental health, despite this era that we're now, quote unquote, coming out of. The Black and brown culture still, at least the older tradition for sure, looks still at mental health as like a taboo topic. And so I just wanted to share like how comfortable it felt internally for me to even visualize what it would be like for a client to sit down in front of you based off of your mission, which if people are listening and they're thinking about, going to therapy, this magnetic connection, even that I'm visualizing with you, describing your practice right now, drinking tea, that's the feeling that you want to have, I think, with a therapist. You want to feel comfortable. You want to let your guard down so that you can just let it all out so she can tap into your soul. You know what I'm saying? And do that work, at a cafe. All right. So,
at a cafe, right?
All right. So you kind of went into like my next question, so now that we have an idea of like who you serve and you clearly have talked about your love and passion for this population, what makes your practice unique? So can you explain to our audience, what does your practice look like now? And actually back up, how did you start your private practice?
So, like so many other clinicians, after all those 3,000 hours of supervision, practicing community mental health for 3 years, and substance use and reincarceration, right? Like that is my track record going all the way through. And even did a short time in an inpatient psychiatric facility, right? Those experiences led me to be like, yeah, no. I don't.
You mean you want higher functioning clients? Is that what you?
No, not
or crisis
not
work?
Even. It was more so for me. I wanted folks to be able to be in their element, so they could come and still engage with their natural environment.
That's good.
So with my clients, and I have clients with more severe diagnosis in private practice, but they're well managed because what we process and work through is what are your core beliefs and values? What are your strengths and limitations? And let's talk about your cycles, because if we know these things, these are our foundation, and that change work and that life you want to evolve and create, you can do that. And you can manage, right? Manic episodes. You can manage and work through and use them to, and like strengths. Work with your circadian rhythms. And that's what we provide. We provide that holistic way that says, these are not deficits. Mm-hmm. We can change perspective and say, this is me, and I love my light and shadow. How do we integrate them so that we're living in our full authentic selves and unlearning those things that have marginalized us and have like kept us on the outskirts?
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. No, I like the way you said that, because as you actually going back described even your experience from, I'm gonna say practicum, internship, whatever words we use, with getting hours for free, that a lot of people don't know that we have to do, which is a lot of hours. There is a big difference between, I'm gonna use the word mandated, because the facilities that you mentioned, it didn't sound like the people had a choice of either to go to mental health services, and or if they did have a choice, maybe they didn't have a choice of what type of therapy they were going to engage in based off the facility that they were in. Because I know my experience working in the county is that, and this was one of the setbacks, working in the juvenile correctional facility, of course, they're mandated when they get out. They're technically not mandated to go to therapy while they're in, but it's best for them to start working on themselves before they transition, right? And for them, they say it looks better for the judge. But I'm like, that's not why we're doing this. We're doing this for you, But at the same time, there was evidence-based practices or ways that most therapists who come through, even like the academy, which is I know where we met in terms of coaching, we were taught or we were told that in order to provide quality services, you have to do this type of therapy with this clientele. And I'm sure you've had it where you've met a client and you were like, this is not the best form of treatment.
Yeah.
Let's do holistic. Let's look at how you're saying the whole picture, not just how to get them to the next facility, which is some places' goal. And so describe your practice now beyond the clients. Like, are you working via telehealth? Are you in the office? Do you have other therapists? Like, tell us about that.
Yeah, so now we have the luxury of starting actually during the pandemic. And DTA was a savior for us. I was actually coming out of a hospital system doing hospital work and experienced a lot of like microaggressions and all the great stuff, And so we launched and I left my job within the first couple of weeks of engaging in DTA because it was like a framework. It was easy and laid out. So all the question I had, it's really hard, right? Folks are like, you just figure it out. I needed some structure and organization to figure it out. If I was right, we wanted to be prepared. I left with like a month's savings. It was great. But I had been following you online probably for 6 months to a year. Oh, wow. And then I was like, it was when I chose to sign up around the same time I chose to leave my job. So it was like within a couple of weeks. And I sat in on one of the workshops and you're like, okay, so what are you going to do? I was like, yep, you're right.
I'm talking to you. You were like, are you talking to me? You're talking.
I actually know I was making this decision. So we started, and so we've been wholly online since July of last year.
Okay, can you describe to the listeners what do you mean by we? Because sometimes when I'm interviewing other therapists, they say I, and you are actually at another level. So what is we to therapists?
Yes. So 2 ways. I use we a lot because I use a lot of collective inclusive language, part of our decolonization work. However, when I started DTA, I was a solo practice, and now I've transitioned into a group practice. And we've had our first mental health intern since January, and we have a new youth and adolescent therapist who is coming on board. And that will be onboarding by the middle of June. So we have from DCA until now, we have went through a lot of transitions again.
Good ones though.
All for the best. Oh no, yes. The best.
Yes.
The best. Yes. Like I said, I came in DCA like 30 days savings, and I want to say 3 months in. So the end of that quarter, when I signed up, I had my first 10K month ever in my life.
Wait, let me pause for a second, because 10K, hell to the yeah. But then also one of the things I've been noticing This came up in a recent CE workshop with some therapists. It was like a small group of like 6 of us, where I facilitated it. But one of the therapists was sharing, she joined DTA at the end of last year. And when she had showed up to the CE workshop, I said, well, I don't know how it came up. She was sharing like how she's grown. And I said, yo, have you actually like counted how many months that was since you joined? And she was like, no. Because what we do is we reference, oh, 2020, oh, last year. And what I would even encourage you to do, look, we low-key having a coaching call like on the podcast. But one thing that I would encourage you to do, because you're literally a walking testimony of, I think, what we tell our clients to do, which is like, I'm all about living life abundantly, but also making moves and not wasting time. And look, if you actually count the months from the month that you joined DTA to now, I think it would really blow someone's mind to really recognize like, yo, I left my job, made my first 10K month. We're going to get into it in a minute, but added, streams of income, working on that. You did all that in less than 12 months. So I just wanted to share with other therapists that are listening, anything is possible, but it can only be done if you make the moves. I can give you the map, but you still got to go do it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So tell us. So you got some interns coming. You're doing good work. And so, what is it like to be a business owner now?
That took so the progress was steady and consistent. That mindset shift was a little longer, right? I think literally maybe the beginning of the first quarter. And so we're saying DTA last year, beginning of the first quarter, it really started to resonate like, you do know. And so we talk about like making executive decisions, especially when we're talking about expanding. It's like, there's no more like, oh, if you would, it's like, no, we need to do this and this and this because this is where we see ourselves. That's one of the best, right? I mean, not one of the best because DTA is packed with like all the great things, but being able to actually plot out and watch each quarter. So like the 5-year, the 10-year plan, I was just like, oh, wait a minute, we're actually crossing things off the list.
Wait, let me interject. So for those of you who are listening, we've talked about the academy. What you'll see with some of the therapists that I work with is that they went through DTA to create their first foundational work. Some therapists thought that was going to be it. And then some therapists actually would stop right there, and that's perfectly fine. But there's a small group that were like, oh, there's more possible than a practice, And so do I want to go from solo to group and then go from group to other streams of income? And so what she's referencing is the mastermind program that's opened up once a year. But the 10-year plan is in the mastermind. The DTA program helps you focus on your practice for 5 years, but it really sets the foundation for you to become an investor in your own business for your streams of income later, which is awesome.
100%. 100%.
So share because I know that you kind of spoke about it, but I know people like to hear about wins. And so lifestyle too, like what are some of the things that you've learned as being a business owner in the last 6 to 12 months that have been huge wins for you?
Oh, yes. So huge wins is I don't have to work a 40-hour week.
Yes, that's like
it. And I'm still self-sustaining and still have savings, right? That was one of the biggest things for me to unlearn. That I did not have to grind to get what I was worth and to earn my life, right? And as a single mother, that was really important, specifically during the pandemic, because I needed to be at home with these children online learning and be able to tap out like in between sessions, like doing what you need to do. Why is your teacher texting me, right? But having easy access was really important. And so I've even found like it was great. We started having lunches together because our lunches like overlapped. I could do that because now I was making my own schedule.
Nice. Yeah. What is life like now for your business? Like, is your business going to move back in the office? Even if you don't know for sure, like what are some of the conversations that are happening? Because business owners this is the question that's coming up a lot in my DM, like, what are your suggestions as far as people moving back into the office? So what has been that process for you?
Yeah, so we just started polling our clients. It was a great tip, our coach. But understanding that the framework we set up for Soul Work Cafe is really meant to be in person, building community and offering like more holistic services in terms of like yoga, in terms of healthy eating and cooking experiences. Because culturally, that's how we break bread. That's how we talk through, is through cooking and hosting and sharing space. So we will eventually, but thanks to, circumstances, we can start and continue, I should say, virtually until we find our forever home to actually have this whole, whole gig.
Yeah, I'm actually going to go ahead and do another coaching tip right now. And whoever's listening, I guess this would be a freebie for them, because you mentioned that you're onboarding a adolescent provider. And right now, I mean, not to say that other populations aren't serving, but adolescents are severely impacted or have been severely impacted over the last year plus, on top of even before this current era. I mean, we're talking about social media bullying, just a lot of things happening online. And so this is a tip that I actually shared with another mastermind student. So just, count this up for free if you're a listener, is that if you work with that population, when you mention the word community, you don't even have to start back in the office. You can stay telehealth, but why not make part of your practice, hell, if not all of it, in the actual community? So like, for example, one of the things that I did in my private practice that I don't talk too much about, but I probably should now that this reintegration conversation is coming up, is what I noticed when I was serving adolescents in my practice was that it was an issue with either the parents getting them to my office in a timely fashion, maybe the parents even being available for a collateral session because they got to send someone else because I work with working class, or I would have to stay like super late. But that's not even great because these kids are fell in their classes. So they need to be at home studying. And so what I started offering, because I was doing it with with the kids that came out of juvenile camp, I said, yo, can I just go up to your school? And I asked the kids for permission. I told them, I'm dressed super casual with some jeans and Jordans on, so don't think I'm coming to your thing with some pumps. I don't even come to private practice like that. And so I said, I won't have a badge, but I just need for you to sign this release, for your parents to sign this release, but for your parents to get permission from the school. Because if you have been to like even your kids' schools, I noticed it at my son's daycare. They have the sign-in book for outside providers. A lot of therapists don't even know that you as a private practice can still be recognized as an outside provider. You just need a release of information. So I'm just sharing that with you, that when you bring on board this adolescent therapist, depending on what state you're in, and the regulations I know at the schools can be very different, it won't hurt to ask a parent if transportation is an issue, if you seeing these kids in a housing situation is not even confidential, my God, or no distractibilities are, they can not be distracted, then see if you can see them at their school. And I was literally meeting kids. They would carve out a room in the library for me. Classrooms were empty. The janitor opened up a classroom. It was so many things that became possible. And because of EHRs, I just literally charged the parent's card on file. And that was their confirmation that I saw their child that day. And I sent them a summary via HIPAA protected text or email. And they were like, this is convenient for me. The kids said it was convenient for them because most of their problems came from school. So now I was able to see them in their problematic zone. The only thing I would caution is if you work with trauma, you got to be careful. Can you put the kid back together again to, send them to class? So with those instances, I would actually tell those kids once a month, I need to see you in my office because we need to dive a little deeper than we could do at school. But I don't know if that would be helpful for you, but you can use that same model for actually people, not just kids. I've seen my clients at parks and they were like, this is so refreshing just to walk and talk.
We're staying right by the forest preserve, and especially when I first started and didn't have an office space, right? And we wanted to do in person and online. We would go for walks in the forest preserve, and it kept me moving, right? And so one of my things is like, I'm a real soul doing the work too.
Yes. Yes.
So let's get out here together and move our body and talk about how being out in nature and in the sun actually decreases our stress and increases the vitamins we need.
Wow. So look at all these gems they didn't got. So let's I do want to wrap up by you introducing another thing that you're doing right now. And so part of our mastermind is being able to take your expertise as a mental health therapist that either for some were created in DTA or for some were enhanced because you already came in with an expertise, which is awesome in DTA. Can you share with our viewers or podcast listeners your box? Like if you don't have it by you, describe it, but we're going to make sure that we create the links. But can you share with them what is the box I'm referencing?
Yes. So again, a lot of our practice is holistic. And we are working with folks to really find themselves and tune in. So what we experience is that a lot of our clients are having trouble identifying their emotions or locating themselves or staying connected to themselves, right? So we created a collection of wellness kits, and our first one that we have launched since being in the program is our Ground Wellness Kit. And it is... I love it. I am partial. But it is a wellness kit that includes handcrafted teas for soothing, right? Incense cones, which is a personal favorite of mine. They're perfect for meditation because they only burn for 30 minutes. A packet of 10 grounding affirmation cards, and then a little flip booklet of 6 or more, and I'm going to say it's more, 6 to 10 grounding exercises that you can actually take with you on the go. So the wellness kit is really built so that you can take a self-care weekend or a day, right? And really sit and create a practice of building your self-awareness, to tapping in and saying, how is it that I really feel? What do I really need? Right? And again, building self-awareness helps our mental and emotional states.
Right. That is so good. And I wanted to bring that into the conversation because, as I mentioned, we're talking about two different groups of people, but even therapists need, or I say need tools like that. And it would be very beneficial for someone who hasn't even made it to the therapy side, or maybe they aren't feeling therapy, or they've been and something happened. It doesn't mean that you cannot still use tools by therapists, which to me are some of the best tools, because what you're doing, and I know we've talked about it behind the scenes, is what you've done is you've taken some things that you may utilize in your therapy session that can be used with someone more like self-paced. But I love it because it's tangible, not just here's the homework assignment on a sheet of paper, which is awesome, but you also have things in your box that is tangible. So we're going to make sure that everybody knows where to find it. And your website is soulworkcafe.com.
Yes.
Right? Okay. So we're going to make sure that her Instagram, all of her links are in the bio. If you go to your website, where can they find that box plus maybe some other goodies? Where do they go?
Absolutely. If you go to soulworkcafe.com and click on the shop tab, we have tools for self-guidance, which includes mood trackers, and with we try to put monthly mood trackers on there available. It's the grounding kit, is also a journal. And under cafe sessions is where you'll find all the things that are showing up. So our cafe conversations, which are real impromptu and informal conversations. And also you will find our workshops, and we have one coming up. Know Thyself, building self-awareness. Again, it's perfect for those of you who know you want to tap in, but maybe not want to enter fully into therapy. But it's also really good for those of you working with a therapist and you're working on building self-awareness and being able to express yourself, identify your needs.
That's good. That's good. And then they can go to the same website to check out you for therapy services, correct?
Absolutely.
Our practice for therapy services. Yes.
Our practice for therapy service. We are now accepting new clients. Like I said, we have some new therapists that we're excited about, and we cover everyone from the individual to the couple to the family. Nice. And definitely our youth and adolescents.
Yeah. So with these, especially when I have therapists on the podcast and on the video, we always wanted to give a disclaimer because I think as therapists, we always assume that the general public knows. And so when you are seeking a therapist, or if you seek out her group practice and check out her awesome clinicians that are currently with the group and or onboarding, if you have an adolescent, make sure that you find a provider that is licensed in the state that you serve, because different people listen to or watch these podcasts, and we just want to make sure that we are protecting your mental health. And so when you're searching for a therapist, make sure that they are licensed in the state that you reside in. Now, the great thing is, depending on when you're listening or watching this episode, is that currently we're in 2021. And one of the things that this current era has allowed therapists to do, which is a great benefit, is that some therapists have, received a temporary license in multiple states. And so like if you want to check out Soul Work Cafe and you're in her state and you want telehealth, you don't even got to be around a corner from an office, which is awesome. Because when people think about therapy, they envision the couch, maybe not 2020, but before then they envision a couch or a chair. And then people assume, oh, where's the address because I can't physically get to it. And that's not the case. So they, not she, they have online services plus maybe one day community back in the community services. And then she also has an online shop for you to check out some tools, whether you are in therapy with her or heck, anyone else. Okay. And so as we wrap up, again, we're going to add in all of the links, including Instagram. And she's already mentioned, so I don't have to ask that question about any upcoming workshops. So just make sure to check out her website. Now, let me ask one final question. If a therapist was checking out my boot camp or looking at something, on my Instagram, what one thing could you share with that person if they were a little ambivalent about getting help with their business just because it's not taught in grad school at all?
Ambivalent about getting help?
Yeah, because that's where most of them are stuck. Like, I just gonna get my CEs to be a better therapist and forgetting about the business side.
Yeah, I would encourage you to tap in, because what you realize is that you only know what you know. And until you get exposed to more, legit, I thought I was just like, okay, we're going to be a solo practice. I tapped in and was like, I didn't even know. Why didn't they teach us this? So becoming more well-rounded and well-educated, even about your options as a therapist. No pigeonholes. You tap in and you get abundance and you get access to building exactly what your heart desires. That
awesome.
Would be my encouragement.
Yeah. What is possible, right?
What is possible? Awesome. Yes. But you got to show up, though.
You let them know, So yeah, if you want to check out, if you're watching this or listening to this on the podcast and you want to check out the Dope Therapist Academy, make sure that you check out the links in the bios. We will make sure to have the wait list available for you. And also, again, have all of this epic information about Soul Work Cafe. We will definitely have her back because she actually covered 2 areas, but I know we went more in depth about the mental health services. And what I do want her to come back and talk about in the near future this year and probably the next 2 months is to really dive into what it's like as a therapist, mom, business owner to add streams of income, because that's a whole nother conversation that's going to last way beyond 30 minutes. Okay. And so, because that's really what people are after. It's like, I want streams of income, because this season also taught us that one stream is not enough,
Yeah.
So,
for sure.
Yeah. So I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for coming on. I so appreciate you. And, I'm about to see you in Vegas, like in a couple of days anyway. So, Yep. So we're going to wrap it up. And for our podcast listeners and YouTube viewers, or wherever you're watching this video at, thank you for tuning in. Bye.